Welcome back. Let's start with something called as functions. What exactly is a function? A function is a piece of code which you will write such that whenever you want to use it again and again, you can call it in the code multiple number of times. Like say for example, you define a function for generating tables or giving you for now addition of two numbers. Okay, such that you just pass two numbers, that function should calculate the addition of two numbers. Those two numbers, so you can call an addition function multiple number of times, as much as you want. Or let's say a more complex example, you want to print the tables of a particular number. So you want to generate an application for somebody who would generate, who would just enter, 9 and say enter, it would generate the tables for 9. Or if you say 10, it will generate the tables for 10. So for all of them, you require a particular function which will generate tables which can have different inputs, right? In the similar fashion, we can have functions. So the function, one of the greatest, use case of function is reusability. You can use that multiple times. Okay, coming to a new notebook, let's call it as functions. Okay, now all I'm going to do over here. So every function is defined with this keyword called as def. Okay, you have a def keyword and then you need to say the function name that you want to call it. Let's say I'm creating a function called as add. Okay, for now you need to put this round bracket, say colon, enter. For now this add function is doing nothing except it's going to print adding two numbers, right? So it's just going to say adding two numbers. Okay, so I can call the add function anytime I want. Add, it says adding two numbers. Call add again, it says adding two numbers. Because add calls, you're calling the function add, so you call it with the name and then just call the function. So whenever you call a function, you just call it with the round brackets and then it just does that. Now let's say I want to do something else. I want to change the definition of the function such that you should pass two numbers. You should pass two numbers into the add function such that it just does not print adding two numbers for now, but it will print something like this. It will print what? A plus B is equal to, it will just print A plus B. So let's say shift enter. Now when I call add without passing anything, what does it say? Add function is missing two required positional arguments A and B. So it requires two arguments, it requires two values out there. It requires two values, that's a function definition, but you have not passed any. So you need to pass it out here. You need to say 2, 3. So when you say 2, 3, it will add it and say what? It will give you the value called as 5. So let's say 5, 7 and it will add it and say 12. You can pass not just values like this, but you can pass something like 8.5, 7.5 and it will give you the value as 16.0. Okay, so you can have different cases like this for calling the particular function. This is about calling a function. So we have seen function definition. These particular things which are called over here a comma b, okay, they are called as arguments of a function. So what are the arguments of a function? Arguments of a function are nothing but the variables which are defined inside the function, which can take in values from outside whenever the function is called and use those arguments to generate a particular output inside the particular function. Let's say if I don't have something called as print and my function now needs to return something. It doesn't want to print anything, it doesn't want to do anything, but it wants to return a particular value. Let's say a plus b. Okay, now when I need to call this add function, or let me just have a multiple add functions together in one line, I'm just going to put each of them in the same this thing. Okay, copy, I'm going to paste that. Now if I call all of them, it does not give you the output of all the three. Why it does not give you the output of all three? It just gives you the last one, because by default Jupyter Notebook prints what is the last output. Okay, but I wanted that the add function should have actually returned the addition of 2, 3, but it did not do that. Why? It returned a plus b, but you haven't done something to print it onto the screen. So what are you going to say? print add of 2 comma 3, or you're going to say over here print add 5 comma 7, something like that, and then it prints all of them. If you want to print even the 8.5 comma 76, you need to say print, because whatever a function returns, let's say if the function did not return anything, if I just commented out this and just did this, so I'm rerunning that. Now if I print what the function returns, okay, this print a plus b was happening inside the function. The function did not return anything, but you said print add 2 comma 3. The function did not return anything and you're saying print. Hence what got printed? None. Which means the function returned nothing and you still printed the function. But when the function was called, this print statement got executed, and that is why this particular statement got executed. What if nothing was done? Okay, what if nothing was done? Even the printing, not the return, but I defined something called as pass. What is the meaning of pass? Do nothing. The function definition does nothing. But when you call the function, it returns nothing, hence it prints what? Nothing. Is that clear? Okay, so with this we understand how the function definition happens and how the function is called. Now coming to something else called as keyword arguments and default arguments. Let's understand that in detail. I'm going to remove these two lines and I'm just going to say return a plus b. Let's say instead of saying 2 comma 3, what if I just call it with 2? Or what if I call the add function by passing nothing? Okay. The last one is going to execute without any problem, but the first two are going to have a problem. What is the problem? If I run this and if I run this, it says, it shows you the error in the first one. Once the error comes up, none of the further statements are going to get executed. So what it's saying, add missing one required positional argument, what? B. It is missing one required positional argument. You passed 2, that went into A, but you didn't give B, you didn't give the value for B. So what should you say over here? You should have given the value by saying 2 comma 3, but no, I don't want to pass it. I want some default value to be taken. Then what you should say? B is equal to 0, or let's say B is equal to 2. B is equal to 0 is taken as default. Okay. So now if I run this and if I do this, okay, it's going to give you the value for the first one, but it's still going to give you an error for the second one. What is the second one? Add is missing one required positional argument A, because you haven't given a default value for A. You passed nothing, right? So you need to give a default value for A also. Let's say I give a default value of A for 1. Okay, so now I run this and now I say add 2. What happens? In the first case, what A got the value as? A got the value 2. Even though it is a default value of 1, the default value will not be taken into consideration if you have passed a value. So you have passed a value 2 into A and then B is getting a default value of 0. Hence what you have returned is 2 plus 0, that is 2. If you print add in the next one without passing any values, it goes into the arguments this time. And then when it says A equal to 1 comma B is equal to 0, right, this time you have passed nothing. Hence the default arguments are what? 1 and 0. Hence what got printed? 1, that is 1 plus 0. But when I pass both the values, these two values are taken into account, not the default arguments. This particular concept where you give 0 and where you give some values by default which will be taken is called as default arguments or default values. So remember this, in Python you have something called as default arguments. Now coming to something called as keyword arguments. See, now I have passed 2. What? That 2 is going by default to whom? It goes by default to the first variable, that is A. No, I wanted to pass this 2 not to A, but I wanted to pass it to what? B. Okay, because now if I print A comma B, let me just print A comma B. Okay, and if I run this, in the first case the A is 2 and the B is 0. No, but I didn't want the A to be 2. I wanted the B to be 2. When I pass this 2, I want the B to get the value 2. So what should I say? When I call the add function, I want this 2 to be passed into B and not passed into A. Then I need to use a concept called as keyword arguments. What is keyword arguments? Specify where or to which variable you want to pass the value. So I want to pass this 2 to whom? B. So I say B is equal to 2. Is that clear? So now if I run this, it will pass that 2 to whom? B. But A gets a default value of 1 because the value for 1 was default. Because you didn't pass anything to A, so A took the default value of 1. Is that very clear? With this, we understand functions. Now, where can I apply this? This can be applied when you understand the print built-in function. Let's have a look at the documentation once again. Okay, so you go to python.org. Okay, well, I just Okay, I'll just start my Wi-Fi on just a minute. Okay, so I go to the documentation, I go to python.org. Yeah, and all I have to do is go to the documentation, go to Python 3.x docs, and over here in the library reference, if you go to the library reference, there is something called as a built-in functions, and in that there is a print function. In the print function, you have something. Can you see there are a few arguments, or default arguments like sep and end. Sep is a space, end is a \n. What does it mean? Come back to your variables. Okay, come back to your functions. Okay, if I say print 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and if I say print hello, 3, and so on. If I print this, okay, and if I run this, what happens? When I print this, what happens is, can you see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9? All of them got printed with a separation, a default separation of something called as a space. Because in the built-in functions, in the print function, there is a default argument called as sep, which has a default value of what? Space. It has a default value of space. Okay, if you want to change this default value, you can say something like this: print. Okay, I can change the default value, because at the end, if you remember over here, if I wanted to pass a particular value to b, I used to say b is equal to 2. In the same way, I'm going to say comma. What should I pass? I should call the value for sep. Okay, so this is called as keyword argument. I'm going to take the keyword argument called as sep, and I'm going to pass. This time I want to change it. I don't want a space. I want a semicolon. I'm going to say semicolon and then say enter. Now, it has printed all of them, each of them separated by a semicolon. The next one can be separated by what? I can separate this one with something called as a full stop. I can separate it in that particular fashion. Hello, 0.3, right? Now, what if I wanted, now there was one more key, default argument, and that default argument was called as, you had a look, that is end. End means what? And this is a \n, which means what? By default, there is an argument in print called as end, which is \n, which makes whatever you print inside, after the printing of whatever is done, the end is a \n, which means it's a new line. If it's a new line, what does it mean? It means after this printing is done, I'm going to leave one line. So that is why the next print which is happening, it's going to be on a new line, because the previous print had an end of a \n. Is that clear? So what must I do? So I must change the end if I want the second print also to be on the same line. So how will I say? End is equal to. So I'm giving a keyword argument over here. End is equal to what? End is equal to, I'm going to say end is equal to, instead of something like, I'm going to say, I'm just going to give a smiley, which is something like this. Okay, shift enter. Can you see end now changed from enter to a :p, and then here we have the hello.3. Is that very clear? So now they are not printed on separate lines. Okay, so this is about a default argument in Python and a keyword argument in Python when it comes to functions. Hope you have clearly understood this concept. There may be sometimes you may find it difficult, but as we go through many practice problems, which we will see in the coming sessions. Thank you very much.